Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up this week with a song that I'm vaguely familiar with. At least I've heard it once before, though it's been quite some time. Alanis Morissette's Uninvited. I didn't know this about the song, actually, as I tried to find the right version of it. Come to find out, it was kind of made for the City of Angels soundtrack. I figured that it was a song that existed and was thrown on the soundtrack, and I was kind of wondering why I couldn't find what album it originally came from. So, let's dive into this, see what's going on with Alanis Morissette.
Anyone would be. I am flattered by your fascination with me. Like any hot-blooded woman, I have simply wanted an object to crave. But you're not allowed. You're uninvited.
The piano still has an eerie element to it, but her melody here takes a bit of a positive uplift before leaning back into the almost mysterious moodiness.
Strangely exciting to watch the stars.
That higher pitch harmony.
Must be somewhat heart-telling to watch you burn me, shepherd.
Yeah, it just cuts through everything. Jeez. What was that swirling sounds? Heavy dissonance in here as a stylistic choice. Interesting to cut out the harmony and the strings to create this vacuum in the middle of the song right here.
I don't think you unworthy. I need a moment to deliver.
Interesting. Well, we've gotten away from it, but the guitar solo here started out on the lead vocal melody. It's interesting too because it ends where I think the resolution would be for for the piano part. But that's not what the guitar was playing around with harmonically, and so it feels like it lands in this halfway resolution where parts of the song I'm like, yeah, that's where that should have resolved, but the lead instrument doesn't resolve into that final note very well, not in a way that feels like resolution or finite. It feels open ended. It feels like there's still tension present. It's not home for the guitar, but it is home for the piano. And that's wow. There's a lot of details in there that I don't the main melody that I remembered. The uplift in the chorus, I didn't, and a lot of the layers towards the end, the entire guitar solo at the outro, I didn't remember any of that. So this was actually very cool. This is one of the things I love about doing these older tracks that I'm actually familiar with, is that the things that stick with me are going to be the hook or the feeling of it. I remembered this being a very ominous track, but coming at it with a bit of with active listening and really engaging with it in a way that I never have before, you really get to understand things better than I ever have. And I love that. You know, a lot of channels, it's like, nah, you don't want to see them react to something they know. But here, I almost get the feeling like it's preferable, even in some ways, to kind of get this new insight on, very popular songs that there's just no way I could have missed it. And this is one of those moments that I'm just really glad. It makes me want to do this more often, but I'll tell you, man, active listening can get exhausting. And I release, probably like 10 to 12 hours of active listening video every week. So, I mean, I'm pretty wiped out. I don't really want to do too much active listening on my own usually. So it's nice to have stuff like this on the channel. So what is going on here though? Let's get into this. This is just a big slow burn. Honestly, there's some cool ups and downs to it. But the first, like 2.5 minutes, the first half of the track is just up. We don't have highs and lows. We just continue to build, starting off with the piano. The main 4 notes that define the chord progression. It's the roots of the chords, and it provides the general harmonic resonance of the track, which is very eerie, very unsettling, even mysterious in a way. It's a very dark and moody, and eventually I would even say brooding track. But all of that is present right here. We just need to expand on it. And so we get her vocal melody on top of that, which I think adds to the eerie element. Part of it is the notes that she chooses to go along with the piano. But the other part is her vocal delivery, which is very breathy. She likes to use lots of cracks in her note choice, in her note delivery, where she'll hit a note, and instead of sliding up into the next, she'll kind of end the note abruptly and then jump up an octave and slide into that note. And it sounds like a vocal crack. Like if your voice starts to get weak and you kind of hit that crack point where you go from a low note to a high note, or maybe you're a teenager going through puberty and your voice cracks, she uses that sound. And she's not the only one. There's actually a lot of ones. It's funny, we talked about this on the live stream on Sunday. Who are we listening to? I don't remember who it was, but they reminded me of, Alanis Morissette actually came up in conversation, but they reminded me of Tori Amos and just a lot of vocalists, especially female vocalists in the 2000s or early 2000s. I'd say even maybe late 90s, but really to me it feels more of a 2000s thing. Using this vocal crack. And it became a very popular sound at the time. But here I think it's used to create these very sharp distinctions between a lower tone and a higher one. And that mixed with the really eerie atmosphere creates something mysterious to even that part of the vocal delivery. And it really allows her to lean into it through the performance. Again, I also said there's a lot of breathiness in her delivery as well. And between the note choice and how she decides to sing this, it adds to the atmosphere that four notes are giving us. Honestly, the rest of the instruments are really nice, and they do expand on things in interesting directions, but right from the start, the piano and the vocal, a melody and four notes, really define the song. What I find interesting, though, and what I don't remember at all, is the chorus has a little bit of an uplift to it. I don't know what mode we're in. I don't know what key we're in. But where the verse is eerie, the chorus feels hopelessly optimistic. That is because the piano and eventually the rest of the instruments still lean into this moody underbelly of the song, but vocally, her main melody shifts away from that and seems to distance itself from that atmosphere and says, actually, maybe things can work out. Maybe there is a silver lining to all of this, and she explores something a bit more positive. I don't know if she goes into a major mode, something that would be, purely positive energy. But it's certainly less moody, less pessimistic, less eerie and unsettling than she's been for the verse. And I find this back and forth works really well because the song refuses to do that with her, where she is well within the atmosphere of the song in the verse and they are working together. There's now a separation between the two, but the vocals get sucked back into that atmosphere on every verse. And I think it's really interesting that the end of the song doesn't even lean into either one of these. It doesn't fully resolve, but it doesn't fully stay in that tension either. It finds a way to do both. And I really love how, to me at least, that carries on this story right here of trying to get out of this murk, of this darkness, but constantly getting pulled back into it. And what it could just be chalked up to basic contrast in some ways ends up being a bit more of a thematic narrative worked through the musicality of it. Now, after we do one verse, one chorus here, this is where we bring in more instrumentation. We got electric guitars, we got strings, we have what I think are brass, maybe? Low-end brass, though. I'm hearing like tuba. There's a wavy, springy sound that it feels like a mix between like a jaw harp and a didgeridoo. And I don't know if it's it's probably one of them, but the timbre's a little off. So maybe there's just some production tricks going on that tweaks the sound of one of them to feel a little more like another. I don't know. If y'all know what instrument I'm talking about, let me know. It might not even be one of those two. But the idea here is to build off of it. So if the piano gives us our root tones, the violins come in with the chords themselves. If the instrument and the vocals and the piano gave us the core emotion, a bit more of an intimate version of it, now we're going into more bombastic. We're increasing the scope to move away from the personal into something larger. And I suppose this could also still be personal as far as the lyrics go, but at least to me, it feels like the end of the second act where maybe what started as one person's journey, they've now picked up a couple of friends or, I don't know, other journeymen. And the party has increased, though, and also with that, the scope is increasing as well. And so what felt like something that could probably be filmed rather nicely on 16:9 ratio now feels like it needs to go for a much wider framing. And I love this growth. It's not a slow burn in the most used way, which is to play a line and then add another instrument and play that line all over again, then add another instrument, play that line. This is done in groups. We start off with 2 instruments, then we have like 6, then we have 11, and every time we get through a verse and a chorus, we throw another stack on top of it. It isn't designed to feel like constant growth over a period of time as much as tension stacking on itself over repetition. Maybe day 1 was kind of stressful, but because we didn't finish what we needed to, day 2 is now twice as stressful. We have yesterday's stuff to worry about and today's, and tomorrow it will be thrice as stressful. And it feels compounding rather than linear growth. And that's what I like about it. It's the kind of slow burn I can get behind because it allows you to fully feel out this new representation of the sound. It isn't until the third repetition, though, that I feel like things really start to kick into overdrive. And this is primarily because the electric guitar is showcased a little bit more prominently here. Most instruments here are rather simple. They're either playing the melody that the vocals have laid out or they're playing a chord progression. Some instruments have ornamental ideas, but for the most part, nobody's playing any new melodies. There's no counterpoint. There's no syncopated rhythms in here. What's present at the beginning is still fairly present at the end. It's just expanded on. And so none of the instruments here are anything that's going to steal the spotlight away from anything playing the lead melody, which in most cases is the vocals, which is a very pop-oriented way to go about creating this. But there at the end, the guitar, well, I think leading into the third repetition, I think it was, the guitar came in with some very dissonant tones before leaving, so that the vocals could take over again for that third and final verse. I think it was the final one, right? No, there was a fourth one at the end. So the third verse, anyways, before the bridge. And the guitar is kind of sneaking around in the background. It has a very aggressive tone. Everything in here is kind of aggressive. Everything is rather large and wants to take up space, but the guitar is aggressive in that it cuts through all of that with a very thin, narrow buzzsaw sound. There's no way to miss it. It finds a way in between all of the width that everything else is presenting and make sure that itself is heard, but it's there to disrupt, honestly. Harmonically, melodically, even when we get to the guitar solo towards the end of the track, it's not really doing anything positive for the song. It's kind of just being this noisy nuisance. The atmosphere is all still there, but the guitar is just making some really aggressive sounds in a kind of melodic way, but not really focusing too much on melody as much as texture. I don't know what to make of this. Like I said, at the end of the song, the guitar doesn't get to fully resolve, whereas everything else kind of does. But the guitar then stands out as an outsider to this piece consistently. Now, being on the outside, it would need to be invited into the group to participate, and the song is "You're Not Invited." So maybe that's there, but that feels a bit too on the nose. So I'm curious what everyone else's interpretation is of this. Everything feels like it's designed to support the song. Every new addition takes something we heard previously and expands on it. How can we make it bigger? How can we increase the harmonic stack? How can we increase the presence or feeling of it? And the guitar comes in and just does its own thing. It feels like, again, an outsider to the song. Even so much so it doesn't get the same resolution everyone else does. I don't know. It kind of stands out to me. I don't think it's wrong or bad. Somehow it fits. I just don't know why or how. It does, though. It works. It's one of those things that I can't explain, but I would never want to remove. The other thing I want to touch on is contrast. I think this is the big thing in the song that helps it in the middle. For 2.5 minutes, we have constant growth. It's at this point that we bring everything back down. Just piano and vocals again. I don't think we had a full verse here, but it's just enough to remind you of the quiet realm that we came from. It is short-lived, though, coming back in full stack, everything being present again, to push us towards that fourth verse and chorus. I like that. I like that a lot because it's really easy to kind of get swept up inside of the buildup of it all and really engage with this size of everything, but forget what it's compared to. After all, we have never heard this big final stack against the piano vocal stuff. And so to then say, okay, in the middle of the song, we need to bring the bottom back. So when we come back to the full size, we have that scope. We can really see the contrast between these two. It's a genius moment right there. And it's so small too, right? It's not like we had a full extended section of just the piano and vocals again in order to, lengthen out the song or something. It was just a moment so that we can return to that full impact, but really understand how big it is where we are now. Man, it's so good. It's such a good moment. I'm sure that's the point where like YouTubers will be like, oh, the goosebumps. Do you see? I don't get goosebumps. I don't get that reaction to music. It sucks. I know. I want to. It sounds awesome. I've read about the phenomenon. The tingles down the spine and feeling like there's electricity in your body because you heard something cool. All I can do is understand it. Maybe that's my compromise. Maybe that's why I did it. Was there a point in time when I was like, music doesn't make me feel the way it does other people, so I just want to feel that way through understanding? I don't know if that happens. Anyways, I am rambling here. Let's hit some lyrics. Alanis Morissette's Uninvited and see what's being sung about here. Okay, so this is another cool thing about doing stuff like this. Sometimes I may have heard a song many times, particularly like this, but I've never known the words to them, or maybe in some places I thought I knew the words and I was totally way off. So this is a very cool song though. It is about it's kind of about a lot of things. It deals with relationships though, but the thing is though is that there's a duality here. How much of this is about Alanis Morissette the person, and how much of it is about Alanis Morissette the artist? There's certainly parts of this that I feel are just typical romance song stuff, not in topic, but just a song about being the object of someone's attraction. But there's other parts that feel not that it's a specific person who might be interested in Alanis, but also the general concept of being an artist, of being in the public eye. I don't know enough about Alanis's writing to know how deep she typically writes as far as metaphor and figurative language goes, but at least for me, there are parts of this that certainly lean towards the romantic side and parts that lean more towards the privacy invasion artist side of things. It doesn't really seem like it sits anywhere particularly in the middle. But we do have something like verse 1, which is very clear to me. Like anyone would be, I'm flattered by her fascination with me. Like any hot-blooded woman, I have simply wanted an object to crave. It's flowery. It's written very flowery, but I think it's very straightforward. You are fascinated with me, and I'm flattered by that. But honestly, I just wanted, the physicality of it, right? An object to crave. I think that's really interesting too for 1998. For a song sort of flip the script. You don't, even today, well, maybe a little bit more so today, but it's, at least in my experience, rather rare to see a song where a woman objectifies a man. That line right there, I simply wanted an object to crave, is a very interesting line to me, particularly for the year and for who it's coming from. But I love how it's prefaced by, like any hot-blooded woman. I really like that, alluding to a sexuality that I don't remember seeing much of in the late 90s. So, again, that's kind of cool. But the idea here is that you're fascinated with me, I'm flattered, that's very cool, but I'm not interested in anything other than you being an object. And it's very interesting just to have that written out here. But it's followed up with the chorus, but you're not allowed, you're uninvited, an unfortunate slight. I'm not too sure where this fits into things. Unless nothing. Well, okay. So, playing off of verse 1, she wants a man to crave, or somebody, just an object. But she says, you in particular, you're not going to be that. Right? You may be fascinated with me, but I'm not with you. And while I would like someone to kind of have my fancy, you're not that one. You're uninvited in my life. Verse 3 also kind of lines up with this in an unrequited love element. She says, like an uncharted territory, I must seem greatly intriguing. As if to say, the only reason you're interested in me is because I'm an intriguing person. She follows it up. She says, you speak of my love like you have experienced love like mine before. This, oh, geez, I could hear this coming out of the mouth of, why can't I think of her name? I'm so mad I'm blanking out. She sang that song about the blades of grass or something. Dang. Oh, yeah, Lingua Ignota. I could see her saying something like this. You speak of my love like you have experienced love like mine before. The idea that you are looking at me as not an individual, but something that you could group up into a larger collective idea. Basically, she's saying right here is like, bro, you have no idea what a relationship with me would be like. And you think you do? Do you know how pretentious that is, you fool? Do you see how I could see Lingua saying something like this? Like it's a bit more delicately spoken, but the concept behind those two lines is phenomenal. Especially after being treated as she states, she kind of feels like people view her as intriguing because she's uncharted territory. Maybe she kept a low profile. Maybe she just didn't really like that much of the spotlight and tried to stay away from paparazzi and stuff. I don't know how big Alanis Morissette got in the 90s, but I remember her being a really big name. So maybe she tried to keep some privacy and that made her more alluring. She didn't put her whole life out there for gossip magazines and stuff, and that only made people want to be with her more. Maybe she got letters from people, prospective suitors, and she just got tired of it. But see, here's where things kind of switch the script a little bit, and why I think it could be at points focusing on more of this artistry side of things, of being an artist in the public eye. Verse 2 says, it must be strangely exciting to watch the stoic squirm. It must be somewhat heartening to watch shepherd meet shepherd. I think this has less to do with love and being an object of people's desires and more to do with not knowing how to act in the public eye. I think this is less about one person or a type of person who might have sent letters to her and more about just a fan base and her wanting some of that privacy back. She says, to you, it must be exciting to watch me squirm. I seem so, as she puts, stoic on the outside, but then you see, video of me around fans or, paparazzi pictures or whatever, and I'm squirming. I'm not comfortable. You can see me, not comfortable in my own skin in these situations. That must be exciting to you for some strange reason. She called it strangely exciting. But the idea of, says, must be somewhat heartening to watch shepherd meet shepherd could also be about maybe some of her songs were about asking for help or guidance. And so while she might be this superstar to her fans, she also kind of feels down to earth, which brings in this entire element of, maybe she's just like me. Maybe I should send her a letter and this kind of stuff. So, in a lot of ways, this song is really about Alanis creating a line and watching consistently people step over it, whether it is from fandom, whether it is from people who think they're in love with her. And this song is like, yo, I have boundaries. You don't cross this line. You don't come into my place. You're uninvited. And so the song to me really is about musically, the eeriness is everyone else. It's how strange her life has become, how weird it is to exist in her life now that it's more public and she has all these people around her that are kind of treating her differently than she would want to be treated. And she's trying to draw this line and say, no, this is my personal space. And they're just crossing it. And it makes the world seem more dangerous. It makes it less positive and bright. It makes it dark and dreary. I could imagine that fame drives people crazy, figuratively, we take privacy for granted, and we're going to stay away from like general conversation of privacy and just stick with the idea that once you get home, you're home, right? You don't have people knocking on your door or sitting outside your fence waiting for you to leave to get pictures of you or whatever. But when you move from that life into a public lifestyle, that can be very jarring. And I think this music captures the discomfort of that rather well, but there's also the optimism. And I've actually saved this last stanza for this moment. I mentioned in the chorus, she has a bit of positivity, and I think some of that is because she's putting this boundary. You're not allowed, you're uninvited, and that brings her peace to create the barrier, right? To have this work-life balance. When I'm at work, yeah, be my fans, whatever. When I'm at home, leave me be. And so she puts this boundary down and it lightens things up a little bit, but the atmosphere is still eerie, right? The fandom, her life, it's not different. So I like that division. But here's in the outro, I think this is really interesting, and it provides a unique perspective into the nuance of this. She goes, I don't think you unworthy, but I need a moment to deliberate. And deliberate just means to think things throughly without haste. And I like that line a lot. She's not saying that you're not invited into my life because you're not a rich pop star like me. What could you possibly offer me in my life? She just says that I don't want to rush into anything. And from the romantic angle, it's okay. I don't think there's anything special about that. But from the fandom angle, I think it provides a very unique perspective on her association with fame. Maybe a way of accepting it, but needing the time to get there. And that's why I believe there's the open-endedness towards the end of the song. The song isn't saying you're uninvited permanently. It says you're uninvited until I think about things more clearly. And I think that could even lead a little bit more towards her state of mind here, about feeling overwhelmed by all of this, which could be where all the layers come in. It's like, it's just so well written on so many levels. And the fact that the end result of it is to be as palatable and easy to listen to and, widely, well, as the 90s, rock was a little bit more in the mainstream, but I mean, this also doesn't feel like something that I think a lot of people would turn off. It feels like something that if you gave just to any reactor, they might get, have a positive reaction with it. Rather than, you give a pop listener metal, that might be a little more jarring for them. But this is palatable. And to present all of this nuance and artistic integrity and thematic cohesion and storytelling on the musical and lyrical levels, and to have this depth of the lyrics and put it all into a package that I think most people could listen to is just, is lightning in a bottle, man. That is so tough to do. And I have nothing but praise for this. I already liked the song just based on atmosphere. But the more I dig into it, the more depth and artistic and thematic resonance it has. It's just, honestly, a perfect song? I don't like to use that word. All art is imperfect, but I mean, this is as close as you can get, I think. I have nothing negative to say about it at all. Those are my thoughts. Alanis Morissette's Uninvited. What do you think about this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on, maybe? Maybe you just have your own take or interpretation or perspective on this. Please put those thoughts down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. You all are invited to all those. Oh my god, I told myself, I was like, that's a dumb pun, Bryan. Do not say it. And the dumb mouth went and said it anyways. Jeez. Above that, if you're still here and haven't grown so hard you've thrown yourself out of the channel, like, subscribe, or ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for this week's theme. I will be back tomorrow, though. We're going to check out a full album. Punk fans, y'all are going to be excited about this. We're checking out Refused, The Shape of Punk to Come. The entire album, we're going to look at it track by track. I'm looking forward to that one since I enjoyed the New Noise. And I think something else from that album. Maybe something in live stream. I don't remember. Refused is a name that I've enjoyed in the past, though, so it'll be nice to see a whole album of theirs. Anyways, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.